Hi there everybody, my name's Nicola James and I'm the CEO and a psychologist at Lexxic. Today I have the privilege to interview Bobbi Birk, a risk assurance analyst from the General Pharmaceutical Council. Hi there Bobbi.
Hiya.
Thank you for joining us today.
Not a problem. Good to be here, thank you.
Lovely. What I'd like to talk about first is a bit more about your role and what you do. So can you explain a bit more about your role?
So I'm the risk and assurance analyst at the GPHC. Been with them for a year and I spend my day analysing risk for the organisation, working with different stakeholders internally and externally, and providing assurance reviews for the organisation.
Great. And what was really exciting to hear is that you've been there a year and you've already been promoted. And it's really nice because we bumped into each other at the Business Disability Forum event where I was speaking on dyslexia. And that's how we met. We met when we came in to do a workplace assessment at your workplace. Can you share a bit more about your journey with dyslexia when you got diagnosed and stuff?
Yeah, so I'm currently doing my Masters in Risk Analysis part-time at King's College London. And I did like one essay and my tutor actually thought that I might have dyslexia, so he said it's worth just being tested for it. I got tested and I do have dyslexia, very minor according to the person who diagnosed me. And then I thought, oh well, if it's affecting my studies, it must affect my day-to-day job. So that's when I told my line manager at the time, and then that's how we got the ball rolling. And then he diagnosed me with dyslexia.
Fabulous. And one thing I noticed was how your spatial awareness level, your ability for solutions, and you have a very warm way with people. Can you explain a bit more about your strengths, or maybe what colleagues say are your strengths that you bring to the role?
So it's funny you say that. I'm definitely the bubbly one in the team. I'm very good at like engaging with different people, asking the right questions, and in terms of like especially when we're planning new pieces of work and trying to plan presentations and workshops, I think I'm very, very good at that because somebody might have an idea, but it's like, how do we get the best out of that idea, especially working with different people and trying to find solutions, and especially when it comes to assessing risks, it's you've definitely got to think outside of the box.
Definitely. And I know when we met you talk about sort of being having dyslexia in your higher education in the workplace, and when we met at the BDF event, which is lovely, you sort of talked about the strategies that had sort of helped you progress in work, and obviously you've had a promotion, so what were the key strategies that have really assisted you in unlocking maybe the things you found harder?
I think first and foremost, like, I was really open about it. I talked a lot about being diagnosed with dyslexia with my colleagues and people that I was working with on a day-to-day basis. And I think at the time, like, I felt like it was such like a taboo subject because I didn't know anybody in the organisation had dyslexia. Like, nobody ever spoke about it. And I think it was just really nice that everybody was quite accepting and that there were things in place where if I was stuck on something, it was just that instant trigger that, oh, it's not because I don't understand it, it's just because I have a different way of understanding and learning. And that was really good.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And do you think having understanding of your dyslexia and having some adjustments helped with your promotion?
Oh yeah, definitely. So it was kind of a bit of a transition phase, and especially like I work with a lot of process mapping and like planning out like lots of different pieces of work. So actually I think you recommended using a piece of software called Mind Map.
Yeah, mind mapping software.
Yeah. And that has literally changed my life. You've got to be organised, and I think it's really handy that you can organise different pieces of work, lists, and like creating different workflows and diagrams to really understand how to plan and how to work better. And definitely you've got to take into account, especially if you suffer from dyslexia, that you sometimes need that extra little bit of time.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
that's really useful. Yeah.
And I found like when I use the mind mapping software, it helps me see all my ideas on one page. And I found that when you have to write reports, it's linear, whereas if you have something where you can think about the different subjects as you go along, it helps with that holistic thinking. Is that what you found as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think not only just in my day-to-day job, but especially when I'm planning for my dissertation, that it's really nice that you've got everything right in front of you, and you know, you can always go back to where you left off.
Definitely.
I think another thing that's really great is that I also use Dragon, and sometimes, especially like, you know, when you're taking notes or you're trying to think about something that you might not scribble everything down as quick as you can. And I think I'm definitely much more of a talker. So it's really great to get your ideas just, you know, all dictated for you.
Definitely. And just to explain what Dragon is to people who don't know, it's about when you speak in and it types for you. And I know that I find when I use Dragon, because it picks up the fluidity of my speech, I'm not worrying so much about, is it a full stop? Have I spelled it great? So that means I can be more fluid with my writing and then check it afterwards. Is that what you find? It's more fluid with your thoughts?
Oh yeah. Like I remember the first time I used it, and I'd be like, oh my goodness, like how do I edit this? You know, forgot to say full stop or comma. But no, it definitely has helped. Like, because I mean, there's times when I've just written loads of notes, and you know, I'm very time conscious, and you know, I've got back-to-back meetings, or I've got to be here, there, and everywhere. That sometimes it's just nice to just, you know, get yourself in a room and just like talk it all out, and then it's just there for you. So it's really easy to edit, and you know, really good to highlight, and especially, you know, if you're talking about one subject, it's really good to kind of, you know, while you are like talking about it, to just go, oh, you know, back to this one, back to that point. So it's really good. It's
really good. Yeah, I love it. When I've met you, particularly at BDF, and when I've met you in the past, you just seem to ooze confidence, or you ooze a sense of sort of self-esteem.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of people I meet with neurodiverse conditions, particularly early on in their journey, people can struggle with having maybe more negative thoughts about themselves, not feeling good enough, feeling they haven't achieved enough, or feeling that they may have been blocked because of their dyslexia, or even if they think they have dyslexia and haven't been diagnosed, they feel blocked. What advice would you give to someone who maybe struggles with self-esteem? Because I know that, you know, when we talk a lot about positive thoughts, mindfulness, and you know, you've got quite a lot of knowledge in that area.
You know, especially being diagnosed as like an adult, it was a huge taboo. Like, I didn't know how to deal with it, because I was a bit like, oh, you know, if I'd been diagnosed when I was younger, I could have been here, or I could have, you know, I don't know, I just didn't know how to feel and how to react to it. And it did take a lot of time to kind of process it, and there are still days, like, you know, when I'm really questioning my work, or like even my thinking, just because many people just don't talk about dyslexia, especially in the workplace, because you feel like, you know, you're not like strong enough. But one thing that's definitely helped me is the fact of just talking more about it, and reading up about it, especially, and like, because sometimes, you know, if you read different blogs and stuff, you can see how other people are quite open about it in forums. And I do read a lot of like self-enlightenment and you know, positive thinking, that it's, you know, it's just something, you know, you know, you can either look at it as a positive or a negative, and I choose to look at it as a positive, because I think it's quite cool, because you're a little bit different, you're a little bit unique.
And I know that some people we've talked to in the past who might have gone on that journey of mindfulness and reading stuff on, you know, self-esteem and self-help or self-enlightenment books like you've talked about. Many people can be quite hard on themselves with whether they have dyslexia or not, and what we try and encourage them to do is when they have a negative thought, try and think of a positive thought as well. And sometimes early on in our coaching, you ask somebody with dyslexia or a neurodiverse condition, what are you good at? And they go, oh, I don't know. And then you ask them what they're bad at. They might have post-it notes, they might have 1 or 2 post-it notes in the corner, and then they have loads of post-it notes about what they're not good at. And what you try and do by the end of the session is actually make them shift understanding what you know, they're good at, because so many people could focus on what they're not good at and actually forget all the talents that they bring.
Yeah, I think you know, when I've had that period of like, when, you know, when you are having those type of negative thoughts of like what you're not good at, I think sometimes you know, it's much harder to do than it is to say. That if you just put that in a box, that's it, you're done. Like, you know, like I can tell you I'm not great at spelling sometimes, but then you just move on. You know, you just focus on the fact that, you know, I might not be a good person who can spell, or I'm not great at, like, you know, presentations at times, but then I think you've just got to just roll with it. And, you know, especially if you can't spell it, you know, at least you're trying.
Absolutely.
And there's so many things out there to help you. And I think, like, especially there's been times when I've written quite difficult emails, and you know, I've just got the person sat next to me, she's like, oh, do you mind just reading that? And I'm like, you know, you've missed an E there or something, but I think the more you talk about it, the more you kind of acknowledge it, and you kind of see the positive in it, because, like, for me, it really made things click. You know, like, I would be good at one thing, and then, oh, like, maybe this is why I wasn't good at, I don't know, spelling or structuring pieces of work, but now I don't focus on that anymore, I just go with it. And I'm just like, this is it. And, you know, there's so many things out there and people to help you. So I think just use the support that's around you.
Definitely, and I think one of the key things there is asking for help. And, you know, and I think, you know, when you have good relationships with people, and that can be a strength, it makes a huge difference. So you talked about reading all these self-enlightenment books. I've read quite a few, and I find, you know, some of the Brené Brown ones on vulnerability really fascinating. And I believe you're reading one at the moment. That was one of the first ones I've read. So can you explain a bit more about the Eckhart Tolle book, The Power of Now?
So I actually came across that last year. So I did a course, and I think a lot of things in the course that I learned was, you know, it's just the thought process. And sometimes, you know, you can dwell too much on the past and you let it affect your present. And then sometimes, you know, we're too forward thinking about our future that we don't actually think about our present again. So it is a bit of a catch-22, and it's just kind of what I really like about The Power of Now is that, you know, we have these different emotions and we have these different thoughts, but how to really be present in this moment of time. And I think that we're always constantly overthinking and worrying, that if we just kind of put that to one side and just think about this moment right now, how can we be present with one another and, like, things that are around us. And this is the second time that I'm reading it. So it's definitely an interesting book to read on the tube.
Definitely,
Because it keeps you calm, especially in this hot weather.
I know. Thank God for the cool weather today. Hey?
I know, yeah.
Well, it's been really nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
And I know that many people will be inspired by your story, particularly with your enthusiasm and your confidence, but also your sort of insights into being present. And I know mindfulness can help a lot of people. So thank you for talking with us today, and thank you for watching.